It's good that we have created a day like this, right, to remember fathers. Uh, and we all know that Father's Day, Mother's Day, special days, birthdays, right? The honoring of people that we love ought to take place every day, right? And we all know that, and we teach that. But the truth of the matter is that we get so busy in our lives and our activities that we don't do that. So it's good that we set apart a day like this to remember special people and to honor them. And today we are remembering the contribution of fathers, and we are celebrating this very special day. I was thinking, yesterday when I was getting my teaching together, what am I going to talk about? In looking at our world today, especially our society here in America, I don't know if you have noticed this, but there has been a very clear transition or change that has taken place. And from being a very strong patriarch society, right, we have moved very fast to becoming a matriarch society. And as much as we love our mothers, as much as we love our fathers, when we study the scripture, when we study the Word of God, there are certain defined positions that He has established, defined functions that He has established for each person, for the father and for the mother. And they're both as important. They're different. Say they're different. Come on, say it is different. They're different. Say they're different. But they're very important. So when you take the mother out of her role, or you take the father out of his role, because both positions are extremely important, it causes a lot of damage in the family. And it's interesting because the areas that are dysfunctional in families today are not being seen as dysfunctional any longer. And they're being accepted as normal lifestyles. And that is concerning, and it's something that we ought to think about and talk about and be concerned about. And sometimes they're not politically correct to mention, but they are needed to be mentioned for everybody's consideration. You all agree with me? Yes. And so I will probably say some things today that might be uncomfortable for some of you, and it's okay. You don't have to agree with me in everything, but at least consider them. I truly believe that because fathers have not taken their position seriously, and they have not honored their position, and because of in some cases, their weaknesses, and in other cases, their abusive behaviors, we have an increase in homosexuality today. And I see it, and some of you might have these experiences in some of your families, and it's something that needs to be addressed. So I was thinking, what do I talk about? I believe that the idea of God setting the father as the head of the household was not a mistake. And it was done with a specific purpose in mind. And so I going to speak about a parable that we are all very familiar with, and we are going to extract some principles right out of this parable that will clarify what God's intention was and still is for fathers today. What happens is that when the father does not take his position, somebody has to do so. And in most cases, is the mother that takes the position of the father. And she is the one that becomes the strong one and the leader, whether it's in the areas of spirituality, in the areas of finances, in the areas of management and direction. And because of that, there's some potential problems that arise in the family. And we need to look at those and address those. More and more we are seeing families that are fatherless. You all see this? And because the way our system has been set up, right? In some cases, it encourages this type of behavior, this type of lifestyle. You have generations that are in welfare, 2, 3, 4, 5 generations of families being in welfare, and the welfare system actually rewards those that are fatherless. They will get more finances or more financial help from the state if the father is not home. And so the father is not home. And so we have families going without the fathers. And the father is an extremely important figure at home when he does his job correctly. No wonder why, when after the superstar scores a touchdown and they're going to interview him, the first thing that he says is, "Hi, Mom." Because in most cases, the father has not been around and does not deserve a hi. Is this making sense? So I want to take you to Luke, I'm sorry. I believe it's Luke 15, if I'm not mistaken. And we're going to study this together. When I talk about strong fathers, I'm not talking about macho fathers. There's a big difference. This machismo thing, it has nothing to do with strength. Y'all understand? I'm talking about strength of character. And it has nothing to do with screaming or yelling or being abusive. But it's being strong and wise and knowing when to deal with truth and how to deal with it. And so those are the things. And if you're not a father yet, but you will be, it's best to hear it now than to hear it later. Is that correct? Okay. Luke chapter 15, verse 11. And Jesus again is describing a parable of how are things done in the kingdom. So we're going to look at this wise kingdom father, right? And extract some principles and learn from him. He said, Jesus continued, there was a man who had 2 sons. Say 2 sons. It's important because it gives you a good balance and a good understanding. The younger one said to his father, "Father, give me my share of the estate." So he divided his property between them. Not long after that, the younger son got together all he had, set out for a distant country, and there squander his wealth in wild living. After he had spent everything, there was a severe famine in that whole country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to a citizen of that country who had sent him to his fields to feed pigs. He longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. When he came to his senses, he said, "How many of my father's hired servants have food to spare? And here I am starving to death. I will set out and go back to my father and say to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants.' So he got up and went to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. The son said to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son.' But the father said to his servant, 'Quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.' So they began to celebrate. Meanwhile, the older son was in the field. When he came near the house, he heard music and dancing. So he called one of the servants and asked him what was going on. 'Your brother has come,' he replied, 'and your father has killed the fattened calf because he has him back safe and sound.' The older brother became angry and refused to go in. So his father went out. Say, his father went out and pleaded with him. But he answered his father, 'Look, all these years I've been slaving for you and never disobeyed your orders. Yet you never gave me even a young goat, so I would celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours, who has squandered your property with prostitutes, comes home, you kill the fattened calf for him.' 'My son,' the father said, 'you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad, because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.'" Okay? So you read this many times, right? After many years of knowing this father, right, and studying him, my opinion of him has changed considerably. I used to think about him differently before. And it's interesting because we all have a tendency to read people through the lenses or glasses of our own understanding. And so the way we understand life affects how we view or judge other people's decisions or lifestyles. Isn't that true? So our own maturity, as our maturity grows, right, our view of others begin to change. And I know that this happens to all of us. And some of you probably will be able to identify to this because your view of me is changing in some cases. In other cases, it will change. Because if you don't understand what I'm trying to achieve, it's easy to judge me. And because you disagree with me. Say it's okay to disagree with people. Come on, say it's okay to disagree with people. What is not okay is to judge them. Because if you judge them, you close your mind and you're not allowing any understanding to come in. It's better to say, I don't understand, or I don't understand it that way, than to say he's wrong or she's wrong. Is this making sense? When you have this sensitivity of heart, of mind, then you're able to continue to absorb knowledge and understanding, and you don't close yourself. Judgmental attitudes closes yourself from further learning. Is this clear? Yes? So, we are going to look at this parable, and we see what are the things that we can learn to become better fathers. For those of you that are not fathers, those of you that are mothers, it's for you to know, but not to go back to your husband and say, see, I told you should have been there. Don't do this, because that thing doesn't work. They don't appreciate this stuff, okay? Or if you're gonna give them a copy of the CD, be very wise on how you present it. You gotta say something like, man, I was so blessed with this, and I wanted you to also be blessed with it. Instead of saying, you gotta listen to this. It was meant all for you. Okay. The first thing that I find in this parable is that this father had created an estate, right? So the father had worked consistently. Say consistently. Now remember that in most cases we teach our children more through our actions than through our words. And whether we understand it or not, our kids are always what? They're just watching us, listening to us. They're watching us. And those examples that we are setting are going to be engraved in their minds and their hearts forever. They might not acknowledge them at the moment, but eventually those behaviors and those lifestyles, right, are going to come to the surface, and they're going to manifest those same behaviors with their own children. You all agree with me? So we have to understand this. So those of you that are new in the business of parenthood, be careful, because those things that you show your kids are going to be there for a while, in most cases for generations. And so we have to be careful how we behave in front of them. He had saved, right? In order to create something in a state, you not only have to work consistently, you have to save, and he had invested and created and had grown his estate. And his sons are what? They're watching this whole process take place, So there's wisdom in doing this. Not everybody is able to do this. That's why he made the cut. This man made the cut because Jesus speaks about him. He didn't talk about everybody. Not everybody made the cut. But Jesus takes the time to speak about this particular man. Say he was a wise man. Say he was a wise man. Second thing that we find is that he understood his two sons. How many sons? And I was saying that it was interesting to notice that there were two sons, because there's some lessons that you cannot understand as a parent, as a father, if you only have one son. And so we'll look at this briefly this morning. First thing that he understood was that they were different. Say different. It sounds so simple, huh? Of course they're different. But in the actual daily relationship that we have with our children, sometimes we want to treat them all the same, because we think that's the correct thing to do. Everybody gets the same treatment. And it's such a big mistake. They don't all eat the same. They don't all understand the same. They do not all process information the same. they do not respond the same way. We need to understand that as fathers. And this wise father understood that. That you got to create a special plan. Say a special plan. Now, we get this from our Father, from our Heavenly Father. He treats us all differently because we are unique. Say, I'm unique. And so we need to understand that our children are unique, and we need to look at them from a different perspective. And we need to find the best way to communicate with them and find out what it is, the approach that is going to be successful in us communicating the vision to each one. Because they're not going to respond the same way. So he is able to do this, and we find this in the story. What is one of the biggest mistakes that we make as fathers sometimes? We start with a C, O, M, comparing, right? If you were just like your brother, if you could be just like your sister, we would not be in this situation today. What a big mistake. That starts with an M. No. What a big mistake, right? Now, you find that in the scriptures when God is dealing with men, he never does this. He never compares them. Say, because we're all different. We're all different. And it's so clear when we understand that we all have been given a specific purpose and we all have different purposes, then it goes hand in hand with the differences that we have. So the expectations from each one are, say, different. And we need to understand that. If your oldest got straight A's, don't expect that your second one is going to get straight A's either. Also, if he does or she does, great. But if he doesn't or she doesn't, it does not mean that they're less intelligent than the first ones. I was talking to a teacher, and I was trying to explain to her, right, this. Then she couldn't understand it. I said, look, ma'am, I go, with all due respect, I go, kids are different. They do not all learn the same way. Some are able to adapt to the classroom environment and the conventional approach, and they'll do their best and they'll do well. Others cannot do that. And I think that it is important for their well-being that somebody takes the time, right, and finds out what is the best way that this child is going to learn. And she goes, sir, she goes, Mr. Sarinana, she calls me, right? I have a PhD in education, in psychology, and she went on, right? And she goes, and this is the way it is done. I said, okay. I go, I'm not going to get anywhere with this doctor, right? Isn't it simple to understand that they're all different? One kid, you go, blah, he understands, right? When you go, blah, 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 and still doesn't understand. You continue the next day, blah, 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 he still does not understand. But you got to continue blah, 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 until what? Until they get it. And if you give up, who loses? Everybody loses. Say everybody. Everybody will be affected. If you don't understand the differences, if you don't continue with the process, everybody will suffer in that family. And sometimes we see the consequences immediately. Other times we see them later. It doesn't mean that there are no consequences, right? So this father understood that these two sons were, say, different. He understood that they needed to be treated differently. You know, it's interesting when his son comes to him and asks him for the part of the estate, of the inheritance, he doesn't say, look at your other brother. He works every day. He's never asked me for anything. What's wrong with you? Isn't that the normal response of a father? You have to learn from him. Right? He said nothing. He didn't say anything. Okay. Third thing. We find that this father found the wisdom of giving the part of the estate or the part of the inheritance to his son while he was alive. Say alive. What a mistake when we wait till we die to give our children the inheritance. And that's the norm today, isn't it? Yes. A lot of times children are just waiting for their parents to die. I'm telling you something. If you tell your kids, look, I'm going to give you your inheritance while I'm alive, they're not going to be wanting you to die. So you'll live longer. Is this making sense? What a blessing. Right? They said, well, he was not wise because he gave him the inheritance and he lost it. No. He was wise because he had created it. No unwise man is going to create wealth, people. I was told by my attorney the other day that I was not too bright. You don't want to have those kind of attorneys in your life. He goes, oh, you wrote the real estate wave and you ended up where you are today. I said, well, there's a lot of people that had the same wave. I don't see them doing the same thing, right? I go, I don't agree with your assessment of me. You understand this? There's had to be wisdom in this man to be able to create what he had. There's no way that an unwise father would have, that a wise father would have entrusted his son with wealth without having taught him how to manage. Right? He must have seen something in him that made him qualify to partake of the inheritance at that point. Otherwise, he wouldn't have released this money. Isn't it making sense? Now, you write this down somewhere, please, because not understanding things causes a lot of pain in the hearts of a father, hearts of a mother. Children eventually are going to make their own decisions. Write it down. As much as we want them to follow the direction, as much as we want them to follow the advice, eventually they are going to make their own decisions, good or bad. Not understanding this causes the heart of a father, a heart of a mother to hurt a lot. Because we have the tendency of wanting to take full responsibility for the actions of our children, and that's not the case. That's the first question that we said, well, what did I do wrong? What did I miss? What happened? And we forget that your son is no longer 5 years old, he's no longer 6 years old, he's 18, he's 19, he's 20, he's 20, he's a grown man, she's a grown woman that has a free will. Say free will. We got to understand this as parents. Our children, when they're young, don't have the maturity to decide, and we need to guide them. But they get to a point where they're going to exercise their own, say free will. Come on, say it again, free will. And you are praying and hoping and believing that all the things that you have taught them that are right, they are going to do. But in some cases, or in a lot of cases, that is not so. And so whose responsibility is it? No, it's their responsibility. Now, if you know that you messed up and and you show them a bad example, then you got to take some responsibility. But if you haven't done that, right, you've instructed them correctly, then it is up to him now. It's up to her. And I don't believe that this father, right, would have released funds to this young man if he had not taught him correctly. So there's a time. They're going to make their own decisions. Now, don't you agree with me that it is better for sons to make those kinds of mistakes while their fathers are alive? Yes. Don't we have read stories about fathers that have left their sons or their families large amounts of money or large inheritance, and but they're not around any longer? There is no trustee, right, that is going to manage like the father, that is going to care like the father, right? And they establish this family trust, and they have trustees that it is not the same. Trust me, it's not the same. So if a son is going to make a mistake, it's better to make that mistake while the father is alive. And that's why, I mean, I find a lot of wisdom in this man. I know that, I don't know if Sylvia's here. Sylvia Hernandez? The nursery? Well, Carlos, where's Carlos? Bookstore, okay. I know that, Sylvia has an uncle, I believe, right, that did the same thing, right? And when people heard this, what, he's given his children the inheritance already? He's alive. Go, no, I told Blanca, what a great idea. I had not even understood this from this parable. He beat me to it. Go, what a great idea. Because now as a father, right, you can help your child manage. You can help them make the correct decisions if they ask you. You can see how successful they will be. You can do things about it, right? After you're dead, that's it, you're gone. Okay, let's continue. What else? Number 4. This father was a generous and giving person, right? Was a father was generous and giving. He was generous with his sons. We find this by the fact that he did not fight his son. And with the conversation that he has with his older son. So he's showing a generous heart to both his sons. Now, why am I talking about this? What's so powerful about being a giving person? You know, there's just a whole bunch of principles there that are kind of governed by this attitude, or this giving attitude. You know, that there is no room in the heart of a given person for selfishness. There's no room. And so he's teaching them through actions that in order to have, you have to what? You have to give, you have to release. And we find this principle throughout the scriptures when Jesus said, look, even the lives, you don't hold on to your life, don't hold on to your gifts, don't hold on to the resources that you have, don't hold on to your love, don't hold on to anything, because if you do, you will what? You will lose it. Say, I will lose it. We're here this morning, right? Yes. Say, if I hold on to things, if I hold on to resources, if I hold on to values, I will lose them. We have to what? Release them so they can be multiplied. And it is a principle. He's showing this to his sons. He was generous with his sons. He was generous also with his servants. Say, servants. I mean, isn't it easier to be generous with your family, your sons, your children? But if you're generous with your servants, your workers, Then that's saying something. Is releasing a big statement that that your lifestyle is a given lifestyle. Because remember, the son is out there, he's hungry, right? And he remembers. He says that the last, he didn't mind being the last of his father's workers, because he says, my father's servants have an abundance of what? Of bread, an abundance of food. He just doesn't give him little. No, they live in abundance. What a father. Number 5, write this down. This father understood the power of restoration. Say restoration. And there's so much to learn here, because this is where you really find the true character of this man. Don't we all have great expectations of our children? What happens when they don't meet those expectations? How do we feel? Sad, disappointed, right? Right? Again, where did I go wrong? And we get disappointed. And a lot of times, we allow that disappointment to come and affect our demonstration of love to them. Isn't that true? We get angry sometimes, not just disappointed. So we find that when this young man is coming back, remember, he must have come back in a really bad shape. He had no money, right? No food. He had spent his last days with pigs, so he did not look good. It did not smell good. You need to visualize how the condition that this young man came back in. The last memory of his father, or the last memory that his father had of his son, was how? How did he leave the house? Come on, people, talk to me here. Are we here? Talk to me. How did he leave the house? With respect, with dignity, looking sharp, right? With money, with a lot of expectations. I'm sure he shared with his dad, Dad, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to conquer the world. I'm going to do what you did and more. You taught me right. Right? I'm excited about you trusting me with this part of the estate. I'm going to make you proud, Dad. Huh? And so he leaves the house in that situation. Now he sees this young man coming back. I mean, talking about failing, talking about failure. This is the ultimate, right, manifestation of failure. He comes back totally changed. But the attitude of the father, and he takes the time to describe how he received him. He received him back with what? Open arms. Say open arms. Open arms. He hugged them and he kissed them. He embraced his son and he what? He kissed them. He did not allow anger to get in the way. Oh, I've seen this. I've seen this so much when fathers are impacted or moved by their anger or their resentment, that if the child comes back like that, he will be in the other room and he will not talk to him for days or weeks or years. You've heard of situations like that? Already the son is, how is the son coming back? How is he feeling? He's feeling guilty. And he has repented. That's why he's back. Otherwise, he would have stayed away. He's coming back for forgiveness and mercy and a second opportunity to reconstruct his life. He's throwing himself at the Father's mercy. Now, you got to understand this. When a son or a daughter does that, it takes a lot for them to do this. You know, it's not easy for them to come back and say, I'm sorry. If there's no repentance, they're going to stay over there until something happens, you know. And you know, one of the things that I find in the story, and I always, you know, I've spoken about this one, is that this father was so wise that he didn't go over there and bring him back before the time was correct. Because when we do that, we all have a tendency of doing this because we hurt so much and we want to help them so much that we want to force them to help. And when you do that to a child, it's not going to happen. They're going to come back because you forced them, but they're going to go away again because it is not time. Is this making sense? So this father goes and embraces him, he kisses him, and he demonstrated his love and forgiveness to his son, right? He did not say to him, hey, I told you so. Isn't that the common thing to think? And you want to, sometimes you have to hold it back because that's the first thing that comes to your mind. I need to tell him what I really feel, right? If they would have listened to my advice, if they would have listened to my direction, they would not be in the situation that they're in today. But he did not. Say he did not. That's the worst thing that you can do, by the way. And you start when they're little. Say when they're little. If the child falls, right, you told him, get out from that chair. Get out from that chair, right? And the kid does not, and he falls down. What is the tendency? Spank him first and then tell him, I told you so. Right? That's a tendency. What does the child need at that moment? Comfort. He needs a what? A hug and a kiss. Now, if he hasn't learned from that, let him. I can guarantee you that they're not going to do it again. Do it again, let them do it again. Is this making sense? Because they will learn. What they need from you is what? Comfort and demonstration of love. Yeah, the teaching has to come after. Yeah, you got to continue teaching them, but that's not the moment. What they need from you is what? Love and comfort. Forgiveness. That's what they need at that moment. I'm not saying that you stop all of, no. That moment calls for something and you got to identify what the moment calls for. And this wise father understood that. So we cannot allow, write this down, we cannot allow our anger and resentment to block the demonstration of our love for our children when they do something wrong. When they do something wrong, right? And they come back repented and they come back to change their ways, the time to do or the thing to do at that moment is to love them and forgive them. Is this making sense? Yes. What else does he do? His son is coming back. He's asking for mercy. And he's asking to be treated as a what? As a slave, as a servant. He says, I just want to be close to my dad, man. I don't care if I'm a servant. Because the position of the servants at my dad's house are much better than what I am experiencing right now. So being a servant at the side of my father is better than being out here with this life that I am living today. So he goes there with those expectations. right? His father says, no, 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 no. You are my son. Says, you are my son. God is saying, this is how the Father is. This is how things are done in the kingdom of God. This is how I view you. That no matter what you do, right? No matter how many mistakes you make, you never stop being my son. We got to understand this. He says, look, you're my son. You're not a servant. Yes, you will work, of course. Yes, there are responsibilities that you will embrace, but you are my son. You are going to embrace those responsibilities as a son and not as a servant, not as a slave. And so he comes, and the first thing that he does, hey, go get them the best, say the best robe. Get him the best outfit. I don't know if it was Dolce & Gabbana or Gucci. I don't know what it was. But put on a suit on him. Clean him up. Put a suit on him. I don't want him just to know that he is a son. I want him to look like a son, feel like a son. You understand this? Because sometimes it's just a wish, right? I wish. No, no, no. I'm going to show him what I want. I want him to see himself the way he is. Not just, yeah, one day, right? One day I will restore that to you. No, no, it is. Say, today. Look, if we could just identify the moment, the importance of living the moment. There are moments in our lives that our children need some wise responses from us, wise behaviors from us, and we're not prepared, and we lose that moment. And those are the things that will stay with our children for the rest of their lives. Don't you go back and remember some important times in your life? Some important interactions that you have with your father? I do. And they are key. Even today they are key. Remembering those things. Is this making sense? So he put aside his, if there was any anger or concern or resentment, and he said, I'm going to restore my son into a position of a son. Put on the ring, right? Put on the sandals. I don't know what kind of shoes he came back with. Man, you left with some, give me some good shoes. Some Ferragamos, and look at you now. You're barefooted, man. What happened? Noah says, hey, put on the Ferragamos on this. This is my son. Hello? He's my son. You're my son. Go kill the fat cow, right? Let's have some good food here. He's my son. Second thing that he does. Not only does he restore him, he celebrates the restoration. Say celebrate. Celebrate. It sounds so simple, huh? Some parents will do things like that or close to those things, but they don't have the heart nor the faith to celebrate because they're thinking, what if he leaves tomorrow? What if this happens again? And you know, when you think like that, you will project that attitude to your kids. When your kid is trying to put his life together and you have no faith for that, you are projecting, you are telling him that you don't believe that he's going to get through. And it is so important to understand this. See, if you don't think that they're going to hold on to their promises, you're not going to have a celebration. Because you don't want to look dumb. You know, for everybody to know that you're celebrating. What are you celebrating? My son's back and then he leaves tomorrow? And you look bad? Are you kidding me? Such faith. Such wisdom. He says, I'm going to show my son and myself and the rest of the world that I believe that this son has come back to stay. And I'm going to, no one's going to steal this moment from me, this joyful moment. And I want him to understand, you know, that I truly believe in his repentance. Is this making sense? You cannot, as a father, allow your doubts to get in the way of giving that person a second chance is never going to be because of you. You got to say that to yourself. It's never, my son, my family, my children are never going to fail because of me. If they ever fail in life, it's going to be because of them and not me. I am going to do everything correctly so they can have an opportunity to restore their lives. Is this making sense? Yes. He realized that his dead son was alive now. That his lost son had been found. And that was a moment of, say, rejoicement. Say rejoicement. Is it easy? Only if you have faith. Don't have faith, it's not easy. If you don't have faith, it's not easy because you're going to make decisions based on all the information that you have. Because some people take what? Record, say record. You did this. And I remember last week. And last year you did this too. And they have a record. He says in the kingdom, things are not done that way. In the kingdom, the record is thrown away. In the kingdom, my Father, the Heavenly Father, doesn't do this to us. Or does He? Say, there is no record. He does not remember our faults. By choice. Say, by choice. By choice. So we can have a new and clean start. Say, start. Don't we all need that? Yes. Don't we all need that? Don't we all need that in every relationship? If we know that we need that, then we need to understand that our children also need that. I don't care what age they're in. You cannot be reminding your children of all the stuff they've done. And you did this and you... Hello? Fathers, right? This father said, hey, it's a new start. The last thing here. This father was able to deal with his oldest son's bad attitude wisely. Say wisely. What a difference between those two sons, huh? Yes. Say they both had issues. Come on, say they both had issues. They were manifested differently, right? But they both had issues. They both had good qualities, right? But they both had issues. So don't get so concerned when you find issues in your own family. Do you have issues in your family? Huh? Because I don't have any. No, just kidding. Don't we all have issues? Don't get overly concerned. That's not the problem. Right? The problem can be in how we deal with those issues. How we address those issues. A lot of times it's not that you give a bad answer, but it's how you deliver the answer. It's not that the advice was wrong or incorrect. It's how you deliver, how you package the answer, the advice. And if the advice is a jewel, you better package it as such. If your advice is a diamond, you better package it as such. Don't throw it in a brown paper bag because it is not appealing and they're not going to listen to it. This is making sense. This father took his oldest son and helped him refocus the attention. What was the concern of the oldest son? Huh? So look at my brother. Why are you being like that to my brother? Why are you forgiving him? Why are you restoring him? Why are you paying attention to him? When I am the one, right, that has been working faithfully. I have never asked you for anything. And the father, instead of saying, don't be like that, right? That's the easiest thing. Come on, love your brother, right? Why didn't he do that? You got to understand something. When a person is emotionally taken, right? They're not going to reason. You can't make someone love somebody at that moment or manifest love because they're being governed by bad emotions at that moment. I don't care what you tell them. And sometimes we tell, hug your brother, and you got the belt right here, right? And there's a little, it's not going to work. We don't get it. We don't understand. Those emotions have to be dealt with. You have to refocus the attention of that child or that son or that daughter because they're not going to do, I mean, they'll do what you're telling them, except if you are threatening them with something, right? But it's not going to last. This love is non-existent. This isn't making sense. He says, no, look, my son, let's put your brother aside for a moment. Everything that I have belongs to you. You don't have to just kill one goat, right, for your friends. You want to celebrate? Kill 10, 15, invite everybody. This house is your house. Wow. You understand how he's directing his attention now? Don't worry about what you don't have because you have everything. Say everything. Everything is yours. Wow. He reinforced his position at the household. What a father. Did not bring up his brother as far as, love him. He said, look, give me the joy. Let me celebrate this moment. Because my son that was lost has been found, and my son that was dead is alive now. Let me enjoy this. He didn't address him. Did you notice that? Because in due time, say in due time, it was going to happen. He was going to learn from his attitude, and he eventually was going to put that attitude, embrace it, and he was going to feel the same way. At his time, let's say at the right time. People, children are not going to do things when we force them to do things. It's not going to happen. When the enlightenment comes, when the revelation comes, when the understanding comes, they will do it. Not at our time. And we find this father so wise. And he says, look, right now, let me enjoy. Did not force him into anything. Now I'm done. I'm out of time. Did we learn something? Yes. Stand with me, please.